Hello, everyone. We're here to continue with our review. Let me know if you have my audio in the live chat. Let me know if everything is good. So, we're going to continue reviewing the debate between Harris Sultan and Daniel Haqiqatjou. If you haven't seen the previous videos, that's okay. I'm going to make this part, every part is going to be focusing on a different topic between, this debate that we, okay, for people who don't know, Harris Sultan, did I say Sam Harris or Harris Sultan? Harris Sultan is the atheist side, and then Haqiqatjou is the Muslim side, ex-Muslim versus Muslim, and he's going to be defending Sharia. Harris Sultan is going to be on the human rights side versus Sharia. So we're going to be continuing to review that, and I think this part is going to be mostly focused on family. Oh, family. Hold on. I have the meme ready. This time I have the meme ready. So I think we're going to be focusing mostly on family today. Maybe if we get, I think after family, we're going to get through slavery. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that today. Before I start, I just want to let you guys know. People are saying audio is good. Thank you so much in the live chat. Before we start, I'm going to say that as I keep watching this, and when reviewing with you guys, I think I figured out what my main life's calling is going to be. It's going to be defending modernity and enlightenment values. Okay, this is what I'm going to want right now. I think is going to be what I want to focus on for when it comes to content for the rest of my life, right? So if you guys are interested in somebody that is not just playing the offensive, not just going after religion, not just going after Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, but also playing defense by, I'm accepting attacks. I'm accepting people. Like I don't want just religious people to, when I'm talking to them or when I'm covering their content, to just be like, oh, they're defending their religion, and we're like telling people why religion is bad and wrong. I'm inviting them attacking certain values that we hold, and those are enlightenment values and modernity, and saying, not claiming like, oh, you guys have to defend your values, you have to be answerable to us, right? No, I'm saying like, no, I'm also taking this more vulnerable position of accepting you guys. I'm claiming that I'm on the side of human rights. I'm claiming that I'm on the side of enlightenment values, and I am for modernity. So if you want to criticize all of that, it is my job to defend that. It is my role. I'm accepting that role of defending all of that, right? So if you're interested in that kind of content, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification. And also, guys, before we start the review, continue with the review, please hit the like button. It does help our channel grow. So please, it doesn't cost you anything. It takes half a second. So please hit the like button so that our channel eventually starts growing at some point. All right. With that being said, let me see who else. Anything. Oh yeah, Susanna was like, get the family meme ready. I got it ready. Okay. Yes, sim for modernity for life. Exactly. Okay, D is saying this is what I'm against, this is what I am for. Good balance. Perfect. All right, let's get started. Where were we? I think we were at the 30-minute mark or 31-minute mark. So I just went a little bit back just to see where we were at. Oh, there's no idea. Hold on. Unmute tab. There we go.
Only way you can credibly sell human rights to your audience is if you hide all these things or gloss over. Been fantastic, then be consistent. Tell us that the millions of deaths and the brutal occupations are worth it. You can't make an omelet without.
Okay, so we left it at the part where Daniel Haqiqatjou is trying to tie in every single crime under the sun with human rights, right? So he's like trying to go and find the crimes committed by Western powers, crimes committed under colonialism, crimes committed under, I don't know, by neocons. And he's like, oh, that's human rights. And we're like, no, that is in direct opposition to human rights. So just because you're saying that's human rights, that doesn't make them human rights, right? So he's trying to tie human rights to every crime that he could find, especially crimes that are, more modern, right? Recent crimes, big crimes, each one of, if you can tie, somehow his audience has just accepted that the crimes in the modern era and human rights are the same thing, even though we have shown in previous streams that, in fact, human rights, the advocacy for human rights, the popularization of human rights, has actually been in response to some of the crimes in the 20th century, some of the greatest crimes in the 20th century. It wasn't because the crimes were not a reason for why these human rights were popularized. The popularization of human rights was in response to a lot of these crimes, and it was effective. We have shown to you guys in the previous streams that these human rights, the advocacy for human rights, has actually been managed to make the 20th century the least violent century, and it has continued even with two world wars. Oh wait, hold on. All right, sorry, someone's at the door. Does that make sense, you guys? All right, let's continue. Actually, Susanna had a good statement about this. I saved it. So Susanna sent me this. Susanna said, Daniel is holding. Let me see if I'm still muted. Okay. Okay. Susanna sent me, basically give me like everything I'm saying. Susanna managed to put it in just one sentence in a very concise way. She said, Daniel is holding human rights accountable for the events that happened sometimes hundreds of years before human rights was one, internationally recognized and adopted, and two, valued and promoted in the way it is today. And in fact, we can see, again, correlation is not causation. So I'm not, this needs to be, just saying this is not completely a proof, okay? However, we have shown that ever since human rights was adopted in such a large scale and globally, crimes have plummeted. You are way less likely to be dying from violence, including state violence. Okay, I'm not just talking about street violence. I'm also talking about state violence. With all the wars, with everything, with nukes and two world wars, today you are much less likely to die from violence than any time in history. And this is partly a huge success of the human rights movement. And it's very interesting because he keeps on trying to tie human rights to like colonialism and war crimes, and we actually, and the only reason why he has for why these are connected is because sometimes the people who are doing these crimes are saying we're doing it to advocate for human rights because of human rights, because we're trying to spread democracy and women's rights and stuff like that, which is a nonsensical way of tying them together. Because I don't know, by that argument, right? Anybody who believes, we told you the Germans in World War II, they were saying that the things that they did to the Jews was because they believed in evolution. So does that make it evolution responsible? Like, do we have to believe that everybody who advocates for evolution is now partly, responsible for the crimes of the Germans in World War II? Or like, even a better example is that we know that part of the excuse that organizations like ISIS and Al Qaeda commit the crimes that they do is because of their Islamic ideology. They use Islam as a justification, right? Would you then conclude that everybody that is advocating for Islam is therefore in the same camp as them? Like, Muslims recognize this. Muslims recognize how ridiculous that is. So to say like because some people use that as an excuse to do those crimes, therefore if you then justify that, okay, so anybody who advocates for Islam is in that camp, Everybody knows that. I mean, most people know that it's a ridiculous argument. But yet they go ahead and say that, oh, because neocons use an excuse for advocacy for human rights as an excuse to commit their crimes, therefore human rights necessarily means has to result in those crimes. And then they completely ignore some of the most productive and effective human rights movements in modern history. They forget to mention like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, or Gandhi. Again, every time I say Gandhi, somebody was like, "Oh, he was sexist, or he was racist." First of all, he was racist earlier in his life. Later on, he was better. And also, we don't have to endorse somebody completely to recognize their good work. Anyways, let's continue.
Without breaking a few eggs, right? So just own it. Stop pretending you're something you're not. You're just playing a con game. The only way you can credibly sell human rights to your audience is if you hide all these things or gloss over them. You hide.
No, we don't. No, that's not the only way. We constantly highlight. Like, for example, me and Susanna, we are on the side of human rights. We don't. He said the only way to sell this to your audience is to hide those facts. Do we, Sus? Do we hide that fact? Do we hide those facts? No, we don't hide them. We highlight them. We highlight them. We highlight the war crimes by Western countries. We highlight crimes against Muslims. We highlight them. Every time we find it, we highlight them. We highlight them so many times that some of our audience thinks we are Islam, like we're like secret Muslims. That's how many times we highlight them.
The brutal history of human rights. You hide the fact that human rights destroys marriage, family, community, how it attacks every traditional way of life. You have to hide.
Okay, we'll get to that. That's a lot of points we get to. We'll get to them one by one when he makes those points. Okay, so anti-natalist is saying, but Harris does support propagation of liberal ideas, even at the cost of wars, Atheist Republic, or at least he does not condemn it. Well, I mean, you are saying that. I'm not here to. I don't speak for Harris. I speak for Harris only on the things that I know he has said. Okay, so when people say that Harris doesn't condemn, like when Daniel was pretending like Harris only focuses on Islam, I knew that was not the case. Okay, I knew that Harris attacks Hinduism at a great personal cost to himself. Right, he lost a lot of subscribers and a lot of patrons when he started criticizing Hinduism. So the things I know that Harris does well, I'll defend him on that. If you're making a claim here, you might be like an anti-Harris Sultan. I don't know. You might be like a butthurt person that might be misrepresenting him. I don't know if you're misrepresenting him. Again, when you say at a cost of war, I'm not a person that says all wars are unjustified. Okay, certain wars are justified. So again, it really depends on the war, and it really depends on what's happening. So I'm not going to be criticizing Harris based on something you're reporting of what he said. I need to know what he said. If I know his position, I'm willing to either defend it or criticize it, but I'm not going to trust your reporting of it.
Hide all these things, because otherwise no one would buy it, and actually it would make Islam look pretty good, because Islam is fighting against this human rights monster. But you can't be honest.
This human rights monster is it's amazing. It's almost as if, like I say, like you know when you put something somewhere and you can't find it, and you just had it in your hands like 5 seconds ago, and now you're like, you just had it in your hands 5 seconds ago, and now you can't find it. Or like, yeah, that's annoying, isn't it? Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, isn't Islam horrible? Or like, what is it? What? Yeah, it's like Islam, right? Like, what does that got to do with the other thing? Like, this is like he's mentioning certain war crimes, and then he's like, yeah, isn't human rights horrible? I'm like, what does that got to do with the other? Like, did I miss where you connected them? The only point of connection that you have is that some people who do those crimes also mention human rights as an excuse. That's not enough reason to connect them to. Again, one example that we gave in previous streams is North Korea's official name is the People's, what is it? The People's Democratic, hold on, let me find it. North Korea's official name is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, right? I mean, is that not the greatest joke in the world? I mean, if North Korea gets to say that they are a Democratic People's Republic, right? Then we know how much worth there is when somebody's like, "Oh yeah, we're bombing people for their human rights." And Daniel, that's the only point Daniel has to make to say like, "Oh yeah, that's because of human rights." That's the only point of connection. Like, guys, have I missed it? Has he have any other reason to suggest that human rights advocates for genocide and all the other crimes that he's like talking about?
Honest, can you, Paris?
Oh, D is saying Daniel is trying to make it about the collective good versus individual freedoms, but Islam is not a collective good. Oh yeah, good. That's a good way of framing it, D. Guys, if you want me to, by the way, if you want me to like highlight something in the live chat, make sure you tag Atheist Republic.
So just stop with this con game.
Con game. Also, guys, don't assume that the person on the other side is like doing a con. You know what I mean? Don't assume that. Like, just be like, just address the disagreements that you have with them and tell them why they're wrong. It's just, even if you think the person on the other side is like, I don't know, a sadist or a con artist, like, even if you think that, your audience doesn't know whether that's true or not, and you just look butthurt, and you just look like you don't have many points to make, so you're just attacking someone's character. It's just not gonna, even if you genuinely think that it's true, it doesn't help your arguments. It actually makes you look like desperate.
Okay.
We will jump into the next section, folks. Want to let you know, as mentioned, welcome to Modern Day Debate. If it's your first time here, we're a neutral platform. Our guests are linked in the description. So if you're listening, you're like, I want to hear more of Harris, or I want to hear more of Daniel, you can hear more by clicking on their links in the description. And that includes on the podcast, as we link our guests there as well. Now, for today's format, it's a little bit different. So we're going to have an hour of, well, technically a little bit less than an hour of 5-minute segments from each speaker. So we'll be starting with Harris for 5 minutes, and then we'll go to Daniel for 5 minutes, and we'll keep rotating back.
Wait, I think we were going to skip this part. I don't know, guys. You could vote in the live chat if you want to skip this part or not.
And forth. So
I reckon you should start with Daniel with the first monologue, because I've already lost mine. So that would put me like 2 behind.
Oh, I was going to take yours off the end, but we could do that as well if you'd like.
Yeah. I think that would be better that way, because we can stay on top of what Daniel is saying, so I can respond to it.
If Daniel is okay with that, I'm open to it. And then also want to let you know, folks, if you happen to have a question, feel free to tag me in the live chat with @ModernDayDebate. Makes it easier for me to see those questions, as we'll have the Q&A at the end. But Daniel, if you're okay with it, you can start the 5-minute sections. It's up to you.
Let Harris go first, because I can just extend a little bit my last two and just blend them together.
Okay. Okay. See how nice I am, Daniel.
What was that?
I said, see how nice I am. I've actually said yes to everything that you said so far.
Yeah, I'm a sadist, apparently, so you're very nice. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
not seeing any emotions from you.
Go ahead, Harris.
Which is good. All right, let's get to the next one then. Okay, so the proponents of Sharia base their argument on the claim that it is objective morality.
All right, I'm going to skip this part because we're getting back into the morality discussion. Again, I think like... I mean, I know Harris would disagree with me on this. I think if the discussion was about objective or subjective morality or moral realism and stuff, then going through the point of like, if the discussion was like Muslims, like the Muslim side was arguing like, oh, you need God to be able to have morality. And then the atheist side was like, no, you don't need God to have morality. And if that was the topic of discussion, then I would spend a lot of time focusing on why Islam is not a good source of morality. But I think if given that the topic is Sharia versus human rights, I think every opportunity that you have to speak from Harris should have been spent on just listing everything in Islam that violates human rights, like going through I would have just prepared a giant list of all the things, and then I would tell everybody this is in the Quran, this is the chapter and verse, and this is the context. I will also provide the context. I would also mention the hadith, And every time you're mentioning the hadith, you have to tell your audience that this is according to Islamic schools of thought, Sunni Islamic school of thought. The vast majority of Muslims consider this to be a very strong, authentic source of hadith, according to all four Islamic school of thought. Like, I would keep highlighting that. So I'm just going to skip this whole philosophy on morality part. Susanna saying, I'd like to hear you talk about why Harris made his ontological argument without reviewing the whole segment. Oh, yeah. So, so saying, all right. Yeah, I think, like, I see why you might want to do that, because a lot of times when atheists, for example, talk about human rights and why this is the best way to live and that's what right, that's what wrong, Muslims are like, wait a minute, wait a minute, you're an atheist. How could you even begin to have a discussion about what's right and wrong? Like, let's skip all the parts about what is actually the best way. Based on your worldview, if you don't have a God, there is no such thing as right and wrong. Okay. And then you're like, oh my, okay, let's go talk about that. They like, you have to first explain to us why you even have a basis to talk about right and wrong before we have a discussion about what is right and what are the best ways to live, right? So I guess what Harris is doing is basically the same thing to the Muslim side. I think he's like, I mean, before we talk, Islam doesn't even have any grounds to stand on, to be able to even discuss what is right or wrong, because he's trying to demonstrate that it doesn't even have the foundation for what they claim to be objective morality, right? Like, you can't, based on what you have in the Quran and Hadith, is so self-contradictory. The concept of God itself, the nature of the triomni version of God just limits itself for a source. Like the command theory of morality is self-contradictory. Like, how so philosophically bankrupt Islam is for it to even be a source of making moral claims. So, like, basically trying to attack the foundations of Islam as a source of anything that could have a claim of what's right and wrong. So I think that's what Harris was trying to do. Okay. Which I think it's a good point to make, but it's become for an audience that is clicking on a video on Sharia versus human rights, that is probably not what they're there for. And for a lot of people, that just flies over their head anyways. And especially at the speed Harris goes through these points, if you're not familiar with these topics, you might be like, why are we talking about objective morality? I'm just here to see if Sharia is bad, So I think that's why I wouldn't do it.
Because it comes from the creator of the universe. Therefore, whatever he says is true, and by their definition, this is objective morality. We cannot understand why rational at the same time, but Muslims don't buy that. This proposition also violates not in any of the.
Okay. My claim again is that liberal secular human rights regime has been a disaster for the human race. Note that in Harris's response, he didn't address any of my questions, so we're going to see if he's going to answer anything in this debate.
That is such an unfair thing that Daniel says. These are opening statements that you guys had prepared. Like, you were not answering each other's questions. I mean, he also had an opening statement. You didn't address anything he said either. So he's like, oh, he didn't address anything I said. Well, these are like, yeah, he had also a whole bunch of points and you didn't address them because you were doing your openings. And now, are you going to answer his points? You're probably not, because you're still on your own. You still have a list of things to go through. Like, the debate part of, like, the back and forth part of the discussion starts later, which basically, guys, that's going to be the most fun part of this debate that we're going to be reviewing, when they go back and forth, right? So, like, you didn't answer anything I said. Well, yeah, you're not going to do that either.
I'm going to focus on four main examples. Liberal human rights destroys.
Look, right after he said he didn't address anything I said, he goes on to he himself now goes and proceeds in not addressing anything Harris said. So, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, these are the opening statements.
Fit this box in any circle. We can go through in detail.
We'll kick it over to Daniel for his opening or his 5-minute rebuttal. Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. These were supposed to be rebuttals. Okay, so the second openings were not openings; they were rebuttals. So I guess Harris was supposed to do a rebuttal, and he didn't. So I guess Daniel is right, and you could argue that Daniel doesn't do a rebuttal either, but maybe you could argue that he's justified in not doing a rebuttal because Harris went on not doing the rebuttal first. So I guess okay, fine.
Okay, my claim again is that liberal secular human rights regime has been a disaster for the human race. Note that in Harris's response, he didn't address any of my questions, so we're going to see if he's going to answer anything in this debate. I'm going to focus on four main examples. Liberal human rights destroys marriage, family, community, and the human race overall. So let's start with marriage. I want to address many, maybe most of you in the audience directly. Do you know why you are alone? Do you know why you can't get married? Do you know why, if you are married, you're very likely to get divorced? Do you know why there's a very high likelihood that you will die alone? All of this is because the liberal human rights regime is destroying marriage. The fact of the matter is marriage is deeply rooted in natural.
Do you know why cereal gets soggy so fast right after you pour milk on it? It's because of human rights regimes.
Human instincts. We crave romantic affection.
Wait, what?
We want to is destroying marriage. The fact of the matter is marriage is deeply rooted in natural.
Let's look at the list of things he blamed on human rights. It's going to be very hard to tie these to human rights.
You're very likely to get maybe most of you in the audience directly. Do you know why you are alone? Do you know why you?
Well, I'm not alone.
You can't get married. Do you know why, if you are married, you're very likely to get divorced? Do you know why there's a very high likelihood that you will die alone? All
is the answer because I don't get to beat the woman in my life and threaten them to stay with me? Like, is it because I don't get to force them? Is it because we actually have to make an effort to be desired instead of, using our physical force and state violence into keeping people next to us against their will? Is that why we're alone? Is that the reason?
All of this is because the liberal human rights regime is destroying marriage.
I mean, if that's why you're alone, the solution is not to like, oh, you're alone because you can't convince a woman to be with you. What is the solution? I choose violence. Wait, we should have that move. Like, I choose, the fact that you're alone and nobody's choosing to be with you. Maybe the solution is not to force somebody to be with you and force them to sleep with you, threatening them with the angels cursing them till morning if they don't sleep with you, like accepting, saying that there's no such thing as marital rape, like husbands have, just because you're lonely and you don't get to be with somebody, that doesn't mean Islam is the answer, right? But let's see. But he also, there's two things. First of all, it's true. People are more lonely. People are getting laid less often. That's we're gonna see what he blames it on. But the two things that you have to be mindful of is, one, even though it's true that that's a problem, Islam is not the solution. Second, even though that's true that this is a problem, it's a growing problem, human rights is not the reason. So human rights is not the reason for why people are feeling more alone and people are, getting more divorce and people are having less sex. Human rights is not the reason, and Islam is not the solution. He's just pointing what Daniel does very, to his audience, is that he points to problems that do exist, right? Points to problems that are real in society. Like, oh, I identified a problem. And his audience thinks that because he correctly has identified a problem, and then if a problem that does exist in society, that because he's right about that, therefore his claims that Islam will fix this, and his claims that human rights are the reason why these problems are there must be true. But what Daniel doesn't do, he never proves, he never shows you why Islam is the solution. Like, I mean, he claims he does, but I will show you that he doesn't. And he never proves that human rights was the reason why these problems are there. We'll go through them.
The fact of the matter is, marriage is deeply rooted in natural human instincts. We crave romance.
No, not marriage. Not marriage. Marriage is not is long, long-term relationships, deep, meaningful relationships. Yes, okay. And guys, this is not an appeal to nature fallacy, because the fact, if you claim that we have certain desires because of our nature, that is a fair thing to say. If you say that because of our nature we have to live a certain way and it's superior to live a certain way, that's sometimes an appeal to nature fallacy. But if you just claim that this is we have certain desires because of our nature, I think that's a fair thing to say, right? But we don't. But the fact that we naturally do long for deep, meaningful relationships, not just sex, that doesn't mean that you could get that only through marriage, right? So he said, like, what did he say exactly?
Romantic, affectionately rooted regime is destroying marriage. The fact of the matter is, marriage is deeply rooted in natural human instincts.
Marriage and other forms of relationships, not just marriage.
We crave romantic affection. We want to give and receive love with a long-term committed partner who we have children with.
Yes, with a long-term committed partner, not necessarily a wife or husband. This whole concept of marriage, wife and husband and all that, that's like social constructs. That's not like, it doesn't have to be fulfilled. These are institutions and structures that we have made, not just based on our natural desires, but based on the way in which our society functions. And if our society functions differently, we might need different structures. We might need to be able to fulfill those desires, right? Those desires will be there, but marriage was something that we have created to satisfy those desires within the context of how our society operates. And as we make progress, our society is going to operate differently, and we're going to have to find different structures to fulfill those desires.
Psychologists and neurobiologists.
Oh, well, somebody's saying, well said, Armin. Thank you.
Call this pair bonding.
If I get compliments in the live chat, I'm going to highlight them.
Pair bonding is this instinct to bond with the opposite sex in a long-term relationship. Most animal species don't have this pair bonding instinct, but 3% of animals do have pair bonding, like most birds, certain primates, and also human beings.
Yeah, okay, good. And they don't have marriage, right? So they have long-term relationships.
Being in long-term, committed, married relationships is associated with countless benefits in terms of health and happiness. The Washington Post reported that studies prove that married people have happier, healthier relationships than unmarried couples who simply live together.
Married couples do have a happier life. Yeah, that's true. That studies do show that. However, that is because that is mostly because societal expectations, and also the legal the legal advantages that you have as let me see. Do I have a study to show this? The studies that I have to show confirms what Daniel says, right? Like, it is true that people within marriages do live happier lives compared to people who in a long-term relationship that are not married. But that is mostly because how society looks upon people who are married compared to people who are not married, and also the easier path that exists for people to take advantage of the legal structures that exist for to make a married life go more smoothly, right? However, as we are making progress in society, both of these will be addressed, like, right? Because societal expectations is being reduced, like the whole concept of having to live in a nuclear family, that expectation is getting lower and lower, right? And also the fact that people are finding more and more ways to be able to have access to all the legal hurdles that will be removed through marriage for a couple to be able to live together, and take advantages of, because there's a lot of limitations, legal limitations in society, and a lot of those barriers will be removed once you get married with somebody, right? But now, because unmarried relationships are becoming more and more common, people are finding ways. There are more legal paths are being introduced for couples to be able to take advantage of being able to live with each other in a long-term relationship, and yet being able to take advantage of the legal, like common law or other things. The thing is that marriages, a lot of people want to take advantage of all the benefits of a marriage, but not all the cost of the marriage, right? Like marriage has also a lot of costs, right? And people, if you could find a way to take all the benefits and not all the costs, some people are like, you know what, I'd rather not get married. I'd rather there's nothing extra that is being added here. So as we go through this, and as more people find newer ways to be together and be happy with each other without marriage or without a nuclear family structure, it's going to be hard. The transition is going to be hard because a lot of places, society doesn't accept that as normal. So you're going to be seen as an outcast. You're going to be seen as a weirdo, somebody that is not submitting to the norms of society. Obviously, that's not going to be ideal. So to suggest that, so he's kind of suggesting that people in marriages, so he's going to say it's not just long-term relationship, it's marriage. It needs to be marriage, right? But the thing is that the emotional benefit that you get from long-term relationship, that part is not different from in a marriage and outside of marriage. Like your how deeply you are into each other and how meaningful your relationship is, the fact that it's a marriage or just a long-term relationship, that is not what is making the marriage more making people in a marriage more happy. Okay, it's these other factors. It's societal expectations and all these legal mumbo jumbo. Do you understand what I'm saying?
But human rights has destroyed marriage, and it's easy to understand why. If you're constantly prioritizing...
Human rights has destroyed marriage. How? People are, because people have more rights, because people... maybe let me play this devil advocate. People are realizing that there are more options. Okay, there are more ways to live. And people are now not being limited to the options that we had before, right? And people now get to choose. And more choices are better. People get to decide what works best for them, right? And again, the thing is that let me give you an example, right? The extended family was something that used to be way more common. So I don't know if you guys know the difference between family structures, right? We have the extended family, we have the nuclear family, we have single parent families. But the main transition that we have seen in the 20th century is a move from extended family to the nuclear family, right? The extended family was like everybody, like a whole village of people living under a roof. Not a whole village, I'm exaggerating, but it's like, it's the mother, the father, the grandma, the uncle, the auntie, and the kids are all just mixed together, and everybody's taking care of everybody. And as a kid, you grow up in a community of people, like a whole household of people, not just like your mom and dad. That used to be mostly the norm for like for thousands of years, right? It's very interesting because conservatives try to pretend like this nuclear family is the traditional biblical family, but the nuclear family has only become popular in the 20th century. The reason why it became popular is because new economic conditions have made it the extended family not viable, but the nuclear family became the best response to the new norms and the new societal structure and everything, right? So you see, we already went through a transition of an extended family, from an extended family to the nuclear family. And now the people who are on the side of traditionalism, they're pretending like, oh, it's nuclear family is the most ideal type. This has always been the best way to live. We've already gone through a transition, so we could go through a transition again. And when you're going through the transition, a lot of times it's going to be hard. A lot of people are going to be left out. If the extended family is going to break apart and now we have the nuclear family, while you're going through that transition, a lot of people are going to not be able to make the jump, and they're going to be left alone. But and they're going to be left out without any families. They're going to be having no support. Their extended family is falling apart, and they have no nuclear family to pick that up. But there's no way to stop this. There's like the whole structure of society is changing, and the reason the way structure of society changed, that we had to go through from the extended family to nuclear family, was industrialism, was the Industrial Revolution. But just the nuclear family was the answer at that time, right? Just because some people are going to be left behind, there's no way that you could stop this force. And now change is happening faster. Society is progressing faster. And now the nuclear family is not going to be the answer. And while we go through the nuclear family to another structure, we are forced to go through another structure. You can't stop this. The nuclear family is not going to be the answer to the new societal norms, the new economic structures that we're going to have in the future, right? And the expectation from so many people is that maybe after the nuclear family, what we're not going to have no family. The new family structure that is being suggested as what's going to be coming is the chosen family. So we're going to extend the family, nuclear family, and now maybe we're moving on to the chosen family. And the chosen family, by the way, is something that was, gifted to us, suggested to us by the LGBT community, right? I don't know. It started, I think, like in the 1980s or I think 1970s, maybe earlier. But this is something that the reason why the LGBT community came up with this chosen family structure more is because they were the first people who were being rejected by their nuclear families. They were alone. They were being outcasted from their families. So they needed a structure to find a group of people that they could find compassion and be in with long-term relationships with. And what they come up with the concept of chosen family. And I think like now, a lot of us going forward might benefit from this new structure that they're coming up with. I mean, the idea of not having, why does your family have to be the people that you have blood relationships with? Why does nature have to force you who you want to consider your family? Why can't you choose who's your family, right? We were always told, like, you don't get to choose your family. And we're like, well, why not? Why not? Why can't we expand the definition of family to the people that you want to be with? Actually, I had this quote here that was very beautiful. Hold on. Where's the quote? Family isn't always blood. It's the people in your life who want you in theirs. The ones who accept you for who you are. The ones who would do anything to see you smile, and who you love, and who love you no matter what. Right? I mean, I think that's the most beautiful version of family, right? What if you don't like your father? What if you don't like your brother? What if they're abusive? Are you stuck with an abusive family? No. What if you get to decide who's your father? What if you get to decide who's your brother or your sister? I think that's the future.
Individual liberty, individual happiness, then that conflicts with the long-term sacrifice and commitment that marriage requires. Stable marriages require you to give up your individual autonomy in many significant ways. And liberalized people are not interested in that. And the stats prove it. Nowadays, most people are not getting married. According to Pew, 65% of millennials between the ages of 23 and 38 were unmarried in 2019. Pew predicts that in a few short
I think he means in the United States.
Years.
Daniel, if this Pew Research is in the United States, you're becoming truly American by assuming that the whole world just rotates about America. Is he citing statistics about America and just speaking about it as if America is the whole world?
Getting married.
This is truly an American attitude, Daniel. Congratulations. You truly belong to the United States.
According to Pew, 65% of millennials between the ages of 23 and 38 were unmarried in 2000.
See? He's talking about statistics that is specifically about America, but he's not saying 65% of millennials in America. He's just saying, he's speaking about it as if the world is just America.
2019. Pew predicts that
Americans.
in a few short years, 75% of millennials will never be married. This will be an all-time low.
See, don't tell Muslims that they can't be Americans. Okay, this is not true. You can see somebody as Islamic as Daniel could truly be an American. He has a very American attitude here.
According to Pew. Now you might think maybe people are not getting married, but they're still having long-term unmarried relationships. Not true. According to the Washington Post and the General Social Survey, the share of U.S. adults reporting no sex in the past year reached an all-time high in 2018, underscoring a 3-decade.
Wait, did he say American this time?
Trend. About the social survey, the share of U.S. adults reporting.
Oh, he said, good job, Daniel. I said U.S. adults. Good.
No sex in the past year reached an all-time high in 2018, underscoring a 3-decade.
And he's right about this. It has reached an all-time high, and that was before the pandemic. I can't even imagine how many people are not getting laid right now. It's like, I know this, most people wouldn't agree with this, but I would consider this a human rights emergency. This many people not getting laid. This is like, I completely agree with Daniel that this is like big deal.
Trend. About 1 in 4 adults did not have sex the whole year, and the numbers continue to increase every year in what experts call sex recession. In some,
this is, I would be in favor of adding this to something that could be considered a human. Not human rights. No, actually, you shouldn't call that human rights, because then it means like other people owe you sex, right? So I'm kidding. I shouldn't call it human rights.
Countries like Denmark and Spain, governments.
But it is a crisis. It's a crisis. It's not a human rights crisis, because you don't have a right to it, because somebody else has to give that to you if it's a right. But it is a crisis. I completely agree with Daniel that this is a crisis.
Have to literally beg their population to have sex. Now, if you're in the minority.
What is this? Puya is saying, you don't have to rub it in our faces, man. I'm rubbing it in someone else's face, Puya. Don't worry about that. I'm at the gym. Okay, no, I'm not going to read that.
Who does get married, then the likelihood that your marriage will end in divorce is very high if you live in liberal democracies. In the US, about 44% of marriages end in divorce. In France, 51%. In the UK, 42%. These stats don't even factor in long-term separation between couples. If we counted that, the rates.
Guys, these are all true, okay? But the question that people don't ask themselves when they're listening to this is like, what does this got to do with human rights? These are all true. This is a crisis. This is a crisis. And again, guys, I'm not making a light of this when I'm saying this is a crisis. When I'm like people not getting laid, when I say that this is a crisis, this is not a joke. This is a human desire. People are depressed when they go for a long time without getting laid. This is a need. This is a biological need that everyone, well, not everyone, not shout out to asexuals there, but this is a human need that many people do have, right? So don't make light of this when people say that this is a crisis. We emotionally, we are, we're not going to be functioning the same way. We're not going to be as happy if somebody goes this long without, having sex. Oh wow, people are actually crying in the live chat. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Is this hitting a nerve? Is this making? But yeah, okay. So again, some people who are against Daniel will go be like, "Oh no, this is not a crisis." Like, don't get tempted to say that this is not a crisis, because this is a crisis. However, the question that you have to be asking is like, okay, Daniel, show us how human rights is responsible for this.
This would be even higher. The likelihood.
See, when I say that this will happen when people are going to through transitions, a lot of people are going to be left alone. A lot of people are going to be left without family. A lot of people are going to go through long periods without sex. That is not because human rights advocacy is increasing. That's because of when you have progress, when economies of entire countries, develop, the structure of a society will change. And when the structure of a society changed, the institutions and the foundations that we had for our relationships and the way we communicate and the way we interact that worked for those structures before, it's not going to work for the modern world. Like, even without human rights advocacy, as long as we have progress, as long as economies are growing, new structures of societies will have to come in place. New forms of families have to come in place. We've already gone through this. Like, the first time, like, we went through a transition from an extended family to a nuclear family, we didn't have human rights advocacy at the levels that we have right now. Even if you had no human rights, let's say you lived under, I don't know, the most authoritarian regimes in existence, right? If you have economic development, if your authoritarian, actually no, because authoritarian regimes, they will decide whether there's a proper structure for you. I'm just saying, like, let's say an Islamic society, okay? Even if you have like an Islamic society, if it becomes richer, the structure of the economy is going to change. And this is another problem with religion and tradition, right? Because modern problems require modern solutions. You can't just force people to just keep interacting the way they did before and keep the same institutions and same structures as before, even though everything is changing. You are going to need to. I mean, you don't need to. It will naturally come. People will interact differently with each other and come up with new structures. If you try to hold back what you had before, you're only going to make the struggle and the misery last longer, right? But every time you go through these transitions, people are going to suffer. It's just what you can do is come and instead of trying to fight the transition, what you need to do is try to come and see how you could help more people to go through this transition more seamlessly. Instead of trying to hold back, and society is moving forward, instead of like holding the rope and like, no, let's stay where we are. It's not gonna. It's growing. People are making more money. People have more stuff. People are communicating differently. People are traveling more. People's works are different. The work structure, everything is different. You can't hold that back. So instead of like saying like, no, stay, interact like this, talk like this, be in this family structure, wear these clothes. Instead of doing that, just look at who's failing to go through the transition and be like, help them. Figure out how to help them move forward.
Your spouse will cheat on you is also very high in free liberal countries. Some studies have found that
if your wife is not cheating on you because they fear physical violence, then you haven't addressed the problem. Or like, oh yeah, in Islamic families, wives are less likely to cheat on you. Okay, why? Because of threat of physical violence? Yeah, that's not. You didn't solve the problem. The underlying problem will still be there.
Fidelity rate is as high as 26% in some Western countries. Those people who do get married are also going to have lower quality marriages. Studies show that having multiple sex partners prior to marriage reduces marital quality. People are less satisfied with their spouse when they have been around the block a few times, literally.
That's actually true. Again, you don't have to deny the statistics. What Daniel is saying is true. Women who have had more sexual partners are less happy in a marriage than people who have had no sexual partners before their marriage. Again, we are on the side of freedom for women. We don't have to deny, unlike some other people, we don't have to deny what is actually statistically been shown to be true. Okay. However, how do you what is your solution to that? Is your solution to that to force women to not have sex outside of marriage before they get married? That will just make the problem worse. Here's the thing. Again, correlate, guys, always remember, correlation is not causation. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe, okay, so women who have multiple sexual partners before marriage tend to be less happy with their sex partner in a marriage than women that haven't been with anybody before, okay? Does this necessarily mean that it's the sexual partners they have been with? Okay, be careful, okay? Let's think about this together, okay? Does this mean that because they were with other sex partners, is that why their marriage is now less satisfying? Their sex their sex in their marriage is less satisfying. Can you find any other explanation for this? Like, just think about this. Think about this. Can you see? We found a correlation. A causation is being suggested because of a correlation. Can you think about something that? What other explanation do you have? No, guys, this is actually true. This is actually true. Studies have shown that women who have more sex partners before a marriage, they're less satisfied with their sex partner in the marriage. That is what he's saying is true. Guys, your comebacks are so horrible. Look at this. You guys are so. Daniel so this guy is saying Daniel is a perv. All he can think of is sex. Guys, sex is important. Sex is important. Being sexually satisfied in your life, you guys are so dismissive of this problem. The fact that people are not having sex as much as they used to, you can't be like, oh, you must be a perv to be talking about this. No, this is a health crisis. This is emotional health. Mental health is an important thing in people's life. You guys must be so. Think about how, oh God, you guys, how sex negative do you people have to be to think that anybody who talks about the importance of sex and mental health when it comes to being happy with your sex life and all that, how? Let me see. Saying yes, but taking a break is also important if a woman wants to take a break. Yeah, but what does that got to do with what we're talking about? We're not saying if you. Oh my. Okay, I'm not going to talk to you. That's not what we're talking about. We're not saying people shouldn't be able to take breaks. Your point is irrelevant. Okay. Bish is saying, what if they be happier in a relationship where partners are free to have sex with anyone but romantically monogamous? Okay, you guys are not understanding what I'm saying. A correlation was suggested. No, a correlation was mentioned. A correct correlation was mentioned. This is proven to be true, but a causation was suggested. Do you see how the causation could be? Okay, I'm going to give it away because you guys can't. Oh yeah, AJ gets it. It could go. It could be the other way around. It could be the other way around. It could be not because you having sex partners made you less satisfied with your sex in a marriage, in a long-term relationship, or marriage. It could be that the person that desires more sex partners is not the type of person that would be satisfied with a committed long-term relationship. Do you understand what I'm saying? The causation might be the other way around. It's not that the sex partners made her unhappy with this committed long-term relationship. It's maybe because if you have multiple sex partners, that's an indication that you are not the type of person that would be happy with any form of long-term committed relationship. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you were forced, even if you didn't have any sex partners, if you were forced to just be like have no sex partners before marriage, you would still be unhappy because you're just not the type of person that would be bored by a long-term committed relationship. Do you see how the causation could be the other way around? That it wasn't the sex partners that made you unsatisfied. It's you that you're the type of person that needs multiple sex partners. Do you guys get what I'm saying? AJ is saying yes, exactly what I meant. Jack is saying Armin sounds like my online professor when they get disappointed because no one is answering. Puya is saying, oh, that's a very good point. Makes a lot of sense. Oh, thank you, Puya. Oh, people are getting it. Okay, cool.
By the time people do get married in the West in their 30s or 40s.
Also, by the way, some other things that could contribute to the fact that people are people who have multiple sex partners, they would be having less of a meaningful relationship once they get into a marriage or something, is the fact that it's taboo for a woman to have, because it's not as true with men, right? So why is it that when men have many sex partners before marriage, that doesn't affect their satisfaction with their relationship in a marriage, even though they had multiple sex partners before they got married, right? But women who have multiple sex partners before they get married or committed into a long-term relationship, it does affect their relationship. Okay. One reason could be is because of how taboo it is for women to be around, like how men will perceive a woman who has had multiple sex partner before their marriage, like because of the societal expectations that you have of a woman and how much is demonized or how much you're looked down upon as a woman who has been around, who has had multiple sex partners. That could also affect, the negative attitude towards you might affect your long-term relationship, right? So this is also something that the solution might be not to force women to only have sexual relationship within marriage. The solution might be the other way around. The solution might be to, first of all, not to expect women to get married, and also if they want to get married, not to look down, make it normal for them to have been around with other people before they were in a marriage, right? So the solution to this is not Islam. The solution is not to make marriage an expectation, make marriage an option, but not an expectation, and also not make normalize the fact that, I've been with other people. If maybe the normalization of that would make it easier for you to be in a long-term relationship because the perception of your husband is not going to be less of you. Does that make sense?
They have had so many failed past relationships that they're often emotionally damaged. The person you're marrying comes with all this baggage in addition to your own baggage. So the overall marital quality suffers. But Muslims, because of Islam...
See, so here's the thing that he didn't do, he should have done. He cited the statistics, like you mentioned, the things that studies shows. That is correct, okay? But then he provided an explanation that was not mentioned in those studies. He came up with this explanation. When I gave you what the explanation could be, I was careful to say it could be this. It might be the other way around. One explanation could be this. Like, I'm just trying to suggest that the explanation Daniel is giving doesn't exhaust all the possibilities, right? But what Daniel is doing is that he doesn't tell. You need to be more honest with your audience, Daniel. Let me actually see it, make sure if I'm representing him correctly, because I think he gives the statistics, and the statistics on this are true, but then he comes off with the reasoning for why this is the case without mentioning that is not what the statistics actually say. That is his conclusion. So he's mixing what the studies show with the conclusion, and a lot of people might come up with the interpretation that his conclusion was part of the studies.
And Sharia, the person you're marrying comes with all this baggage.
Like this stuff that is saying that the reason at all is because the person you're marrying is coming with this baggage. That is not a claim by these studies. That's just his claim. The studies just show that women with like multiple sex partner before marriage, they seem to be less satisfied with their sex partner during marriage. But they don't suggest the explanation that Daniel's giving. But just by putting it side by side, he doesn't indicate where the study stops and his opinion start. He doesn't make it clear where that line is. Okay, if you want to make that where that line is, the words that you should be using is like, it could be because of this, not that it is this.
In addition to your own baggage. So the overall marital quality suffers. But Muslims, because of Islam and Sharia, are on the opposite end of all this. Yes, modernity is affecting Muslims, unfortunately, but we're on the opposite end in terms of these stats.
Okay, so he said it's very interesting because he's saying, he admits that yes, modernity, I think he has looked into the studies and he has seen that Islamic countries that are more modern, they're seeing this effect as well. Okay, so it doesn't seem like being an Islamic country is stopping that trend. So he's admitting that, okay, yes, Muslim countries are seeing that effect as well, right? But then he to me, it seems like, again, maybe this is incorrect, and I will show you why it could be incorrect, that as long as you're making progress, as long as you're, becoming more economic, as long as your GDP is growing as a country, you are going to go through these shifts. Islam is not going to be able to stand against this shift. You are going to see these shifts. And as every time you make a shift in the structure of society, a lot of people are going to be left behind. Okay? This is true for Islamic countries and not Islamic countries. But let me see how he addresses the fact that this is also happening to Islamic countries.
It is affecting Muslims, unfortunately, but we're on the opposite end in terms of these stats.
We're on the opposite end of these stats, okay? But Daniel, is that because they're Islamic, or is that because they're less developed? So Islamic countries, on average, are less developed than not Islamic countries on average. Okay, again, don't go find me anecdotal examples. Yes, I know Malaysia is more developed than Kenya. Okay, so you could go find examples like that. But I'm just saying, relative to all the countries in the world, Islamic countries are behind on average, right? So are they having these problems less because of Islam? Like, is Islam saving them? Is Islam saving them from going through this transition because Islam is holding the society back? Is that the price that you want to pay? Like, is Islam holding society, making societies less developed, and therefore you're not having problems with modernity? Like, like, hey, guess what? I don't have a problem with like a leak in my roof. I never have to worry about a leak in my roof. I figured out a solution. Never have to worry about it. Other people have to go hire, spend so much money fixing leaks in their roof, but I don't ever have to worry about that. You know why? Because I'm homeless. I don't have a home. I sleep in the street. Isn't that great that I don't have to deal with that shit? Like, really? Okay.
Numerous ethnographic studies of Muslim countries prove this. Muslims get married more, they get married younger, they have far lower levels of premarital and extramarital sex, they have lower divorce rates, and due to all of this, they have higher quality marriages, love, and romance. This is because of the rules in it.
Yeah, but this is also, Daniel, this is also true with poorer countries that are not Muslim. Okay? Like, poor countries that are less developed, that don't have Islam, also have the family structures and more marriages, and more kids in the house, and so it's not, doesn't seem like it's Islam that is giving all that. It seems like this is poverty and it's like lack of development. Like, is that what, like, we have? Is that, I mean, if that is the reason why people get to stay in families and have more marriages and have more kids, like, I'm sure even the people who are going without sex for long periods of time are not going to be like, okay, fine, make me, like, let's have less better lack of healthcare, more poverty, more hunger, less social safety nets. Let's go with all of that because family. Like, no, people are not going to make that switch. It's not worth the cost. Okay, like, first of all, even if people want to make that switch, this is a train that you can't. It's like, I'm gonna just stand in front of this train and hold my hand and make it stop. Like, nobody. Again, I have to remind everybody, this has nothing to do with human rights. This is about developed countries versus undeveloped countries. And even if you don't like the fact, as a country becomes as societies become more developed and as they modernize, there's going to be certain things that we like that we're going to lose. Okay? Most people think that it's worth the cost. We're going to find other ways to satisfy those desires. Okay? But even the people who think, like, you know what, it's not worth it. Okay? It's not worth it. Yes, we have less poverty. Yes, we have less hunger. Yes, we have more healthcare. Yes, we have better standards of living. Yes, I don't know, we have better education. All of that. We have all of that. We have access to clean water. Yes, we have all of these things. But it's not worth it, man. I want family. I want family back, okay? Even the few people who want that instead, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to stop that. This is just going to, things are going to just keep progressing. Nobody's going to be able to stop that. And if you do stop that, like, are you going to hold all of society back because of it? Instead of trying to hold society back because you prefer the nuclear family, maybe help us figure out a new structure of a family that works with this reality and help more people transition towards that. Hold on, let me read a few comments. Daniel should go look at divorce rates in Iran. My guess is that a big reason that it is lower in the Islamic countries might be the fact that divorce is not socially acceptable. Well, I mean, we don't want to guess things here. Maybe I should show you some stats here. Exactly, Armin, because the women who get divorced in poor countries cannot find financial freedom. Yeah, I mean, like, oh my God, look at this family. We have better, more stable families. Well, because people are forced into living into families because there's no other options. If like, oh my God, families are breaking apart. Why? Because people are free to make choices. And if they want to leave families, they get to. Like, okay, so the problem was not, like, you're not solving a problem by forcing people to stay within their families. You know, that's not like, that is not the solution that you want. Like, the underlying problem that is causing, the underlying problem that is breaking families apart in modern, societies, that underlying problem might also still be there in other societies, but you're just not seeing it because people are forced to just be together. Like, you don't get to live to each other. But that doesn't mean they're not being affected by the same underlying problems. Vikram saying, wouldn't the correct prescription be to encourage people to have as much sex as possible and never settle? A solution, I mean, people want to have sex, they just can't find sex partners. It's not like people like they'll say like, oh no, thank you, I don't want sex. I don't think that's the issue here. I think people are socially awkward. I think a lot of men don't know how to approach women. I think we need sex education. I think people need actually more experiences. We need to find modern ways for people to interact with each other in less cringy ways. These are like, there's so many solutions. It's not let's go back. The solution is not let's go back. The solution is like, let's find a new way to address the new realities of our modern societies. What is this? Do we have people who are not getting laid and crying in the live chat? I'm sorry, guys.
Islamic law that specify gender separation, hijab and modesty, restrictions on fornication and adultery, patriarchy and gender roles, family.
Oh, by the way, let me tell you, it's the same thing with Muslims. Again, Muslims are also not getting as late as Daniel might be suggesting. It depends on the country. Again, as he mentioned himself, modernity is affecting Muslims as well.
Involvement in.
I just want you to guys, and some right-leaning people are like, you know what? If I'm assigned, Islam is seems to have it right. Like, I want a state mandate, assigning women to me, and then when I own them, they don't get to say no to me when I want sex. That seems amazing. For some far right people are like, maybe we need some Islam.
Marriage and so forth. These are rules the liberal human rights regime considers backwards and misogynistic, but these are the same exact rules that save Muslim marriages from the destruction that Western society is suffering from. So Haris can give this abstract discussion of objective good versus.
Guys, remember I showed you in the Human Rights Declaration that protection of family was a major theme in human rights declarations, right? So this whole idea of human rights being against family is completely nonsensical.
Versus evil.
I just think my opinion is that we should just keep expanding what how you form the definition of a family and how you get to define a family. I think that's the solution for the modern society.
But marriage and love is something that humans all value. And I'm citing stats, I'm citing studies that.
But who's like, what are you denying? Do you have like, are we saying human relationships? Like, is he imagining that people are like, oh yeah, I'm a human rights advocate, and as a defender of human rights, I think like love is overrated. Nah, love is overrated. Nah. Muslims are on the side of love, and I think we, as the people who oppose Sharia and we're on the side of human rights, is like, that can't be right. I mean, everything that Muslims like must be wrong. Okay, so we're against love. We think that people should live alone and have sexless lives. That's what we stand for. Apparently, that's what Daniel is suggesting.
Everyone can agree with, and everyone feels viscerally, because that's human nature.
Thank you very much.
Like you're like, like we are citing stats. We're saying love is important, as opposed to what? As opposed to us saying that love is not important. God damn it! Like, what is this? This is such a straw man. Is this not a straw man?
We'll kick it over to Harris for his.
This is like, why are people convinced by this? Like, oh yes, Daniel is citing facts. You're saying like, oh, people are more lonely, and love is important. We agree with that. Therefore, Daniel must be right. Therefore, if Daniel is citing statistics, actual stats, and he's like on the side of love, therefore Sharia is right. Like, how does one lead to another?
5-minute rebuttal as well.
Okay, if someone claimed that he's all wise and knows about the past and the future and always has the right answer, you would expect him to give you an absolutely complete and true statement every time he utters a sentence.
Okay, so Harris is going back into, I think his why God and Islam is not a source of anything objective. I think that's what he's trying to say.
This is a claim of the Quran as well. That's a perfect expectation, and Allah claims to be just that. Is he all-knowing, as it is said in the Quran, chapter 31, verse 34, or in the Bukhari 318? He already knows what's going to happen later today.
Okay, so I think like Harris, but I suggest to him, if he says Bukhari, he needs to tell people how much of an authentic source of Islamic law, like how big of a deal Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim are when it comes to the source of Islamic belief. Okay, because this is a channel that the audience, like this debate was a debate that was not directed mostly to Muslims or ex-Muslims. Okay, this was a chance for a giant audience of people who are not Muslim, who were trying to figure out, like, okay, let me see what a Muslim and an anti-Islam advocate are saying about Islam. So given that that's your audience, I think it's important to, every time you're citing the hadith, because people are like, oh, well, it's not in the Quran, I guess we can ignore it, right? Like, I think it's important for you to highlight what it is that you're citing.
Today, tomorrow, and a million years into the future. If he does, then why does he change his statements all the time, or at least completes them, implying his first statement was either incomplete or unclear, which is against his claim of it being a clear book, as Quran chapter 5, verse 15. For example, Allah, which is Muhammad, says in Quran chapter 4, verse 95, not equal are those believers remaining at home and the mujahideen who strive and fight in the cause of Allah with their wealth and their lives. Haqiqatjou, this is actually for you. Not equal are those believers remaining at home and the mujahideen who strive and fight. Allah.
I don't know why Daniel didn't use this defense, because if I was on the Muslim side and somebody's like, oh, you're not doing mujahideen, you're not going for fight, you're not doing jihad, okay? If I was on the Muslim side and somebody was like, why are you just sitting at home? The Quran is telling you to go do the jihad. And I would be like, I am doing jihad, Harris. This is jihad. Jihad is not only like I would be like, Harris, in your barbaric mindset, you think like struggle is only armed struggle. That's what I expect from somebody who defends I don't know, genocide and colonialism to only think that this is the only type of struggle somebody could do. I am struggling in defense of Islam. This, what I'm doing right now here, is jihad. This is exactly, I am, this is what I'm doing right now is, jihad come in the form of armed battle, but it could also come in the form of, activism or spreading information or, doing media, doing stuff like doing debates, going out on the street and handing out pamphlets, introducing people to Islam, inviting people, going to Muslims and reminding them that they shouldn't be missing their salat or stuff like that. This is also jihad, Harris. But you, as a violent barbarian, you can't comprehend that. This is what I would say if I was the Muslim. So yes, so you're telling me that I'm not doing jihad? I'm doing jihad right now, right at this second. I am doing jihad. But you fail to recognize that. This is what I would say. Would that work? Would that work, guys? What do you think? Oh, devil's saying, "Oh, my family. Oh, are we your chosen family?" I mean, it's the devil. Of course, we're his chosen family.
Allah had given his absolutely true statement for all times, and everyone who hadn't been able to join jihad for right or wrong reasons would have been condemned to eternal hellfire or at least social humiliation. But luckily, by sheer coincidence, a blind man happened to be sitting there who overhears Muhammad dictating this verse to his scribe, and he says, "But, oh Prophet, what about me? If I was capable, then I would have joined the jihad." Then this is so comical. Muhammad pretends, "I'm getting another revelation," and adds the phrase, "other than the disabled." This whole story is written in Tirmidhi 3033. Now, what kind of an all-knowing entity, when giving his final word for all times, forgets such a detail? This is not an isolated incident. There's another hilarious story from...
All right, so Harris is giving you examples of certain scripture that it seemed like it was saying something at first, but then something happened, and then another revelation. So we have some revelations in the Quran, some ayahs in the Quran, and it originally was saying something, and then an event happened, and then the follow-up revelation either clarified it or changed the previous revelation. And Harris is trying to say that this shows that the Allah was unaware of all the all the possibilities, and he had to issue corrections and amendments to his original statement. However, I think the standard Muslim response to that would be, no, that actually shows that Allah is more aware, because more aware that he could even recognize, is because Allah wants to give these revelations within the context. Like, the Quran is not just the ayahs that you're reading. The Quran is the ayahs that you're reading within the context that they were revealed. So the context that they were revealed says something about, gives an added meaning to the verse itself, right? So Allah, with his wisdom, recognized that if he just give you the entire book, it wouldn't be as meaningful of a book as a book that came in pieces in response to the events that were happening on the ground. So those events will give you the context of what this revelation is about, and then you could give you a much deeper meaning and a lot better interpretation, right? You could see okay, this was in response to this. First this happened, and this revelation came, and then this happened, and Allah then gave a revelation to this, and that will make the verse be a lot more meaningful. And that's why you can't study the Quran by just reading the Quran. You have to read it based on the context in which they were revealed. So that's what a Muslim would respond, I think. I mean, not all Muslims. That's what some Muslims would respond. So let me just clarify.
The 7th century, those guys were having a lot of fun in the desert. For example, when Allah was explaining in Quran 2, chapter 2, verse 187, how you should fast in the month of Ramadan, he tries to be poetic and didn't realize how much confusion it would create later on. He said, "Eat until the white thread becomes distinguishable from the black thread." So those geniuses over there started putting white and black threads on their legs, and they would eat until it's bright enough that they could tell them apart. Allah was like, Jesus. And then he added the word al-fajr.
See, if you don't know the backgrounds about these stories, for somebody that is not familiar with these stories, the level of, the amount that you're giving was not, for a lot of people, they would not understand the entire what the story is about. Like you're just, it's not like it might be clear to you what the story is referring to if you've heard it before, but for somebody that is only being introduced to the story for the first time, the amount of information that you're providing, like people don't know, like why is like, you know, are you talking about the time because it's getting darker and they can't see and they don't have the or because it's not dark, you know, people don't know that that's when you get to break your fast based on the time of the day. Like a lot of people are not Muslims and they have never been Muslim and they don't know what this story is about, and I think this is not enough detail from the story for them to even know what you're talking about. Like again, I have to know your audience are not just Muslims and ex-Muslims. This is supposed to be a debate that introduced a lot of people to why Sharia is bad. So this is a criticism I have of Harris. Again, if I was doing this, you know, in hindsight, again, so maybe I wouldn't have done as well. But in hindsight, what I would have suggested was just to go through a list of things that Islam advocates for, and then give the sources, give the context, and then respond to the context, and then give the source and tell them how big of a deal the source is. And just as every time you get, just go through as much of a list as possible.
Meaning, don't.
Oh, by the way, a reminder to everybody to please make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. So please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. And hit the bell notification because we're going to keep doing this. Oh, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep, even after this debate is over, I'm going to be reviewing a lot of Daniel's videos, even the ones that are not debates. The videos that he makes on his channel, I'm going to go through them and I'm going to micro-analyze them like I'm doing right now. So if you look forward to that, make sure you subscribe. Also, I'm going to try to, every time there's a Muslim versus ex-Muslim debate, if there's any good ones or if there are any high-profile ones, I'm going to review those as well. So I think Apostate Prophet is going to do a debate soon. So I'm going to, depending on how that goes, I'm probably going to review that as well. So if you're interested in these kind of debate reviews, make sure you subscribe.
Now, this story is also written in Bukhari 4511. Did they all know?
Again, Bukhari, say Bukhari. People don't know. If you say Quran, most non-Muslims will be like, oh, it's in the Quran. But if you say, oh, this was in Bukhari, people will be like, okay, is that, you know, do Muslims agree with them? Like, what is Bukhari? Like you need to clarify how important Bukhari is.
Knowing God not know this, you would be forgiven if a man made makes that statement, because yes, he might not have anticipated it, but an all-knowing God must have known this. These are very basics. Allah was making even a moderately skilled author like Haqiqatjou would probably not make that mistake, because we know when we write something, we anticipate how the other side might interpret it. Or
again, the topic of the discussion is human rights or Sharia, right? So again, even if I was giving the list of the things that were that I had an issue with Islam, I would make sure that it are things that people associate with Sharia, not everything wrong with Islam.
How they will counteract it. This happens in our...
I mean, technically, this is Sharia, though, so never mind.
Our case all the time, because we don't claim that we know everything. We write a solution, we do our best, and when a situation arises, we adapt and change accordingly. But the claimant of all the knowledge doesn't have this luxury. This all-knowing God is either a cunning liar or not so wise, as he says in Quran 109:6.
Or maybe wiser than your moral mind could realize, Harris.
For you is your religion, for me is mine. If you took it on face value, you'd be like, okay, that's a reasonable offer. But when they came to power, everyone had to either convert to Islam or be exiled. In the Quran, chapter 2, verse 62, Allah in his all...
That's very relevant to the discussion. So more examples like that, I think, are good. All right.
Wisdom says Jews, Christians, and Sapiens can go to heaven, need not to worry. But when Muhammad realizes he can achieve a lot more, he abrogates it and says in the Quran 385, as only Muslims can go to Jannah, non-Muslims will be the losers. Moreover, how many other verses there are where
these
not
are good
only
examples.
Ordinary people, but learned scholars of Islam disagree with each other, but they don't have the luxury of a prophet running around who could instantly get a text message from Allah, like in the case of a blind man, who could tell us, oh, no, this is not what I meant, this is what I meant.
Okay, so a standard Muslim response would that be, this is why, because you are not a prophet and you as Harris or Armin don't get to go around and get a text message from Allah in every different situation. That's why the revelation came down the way it did. That's why instead of Allah sending you the entire Quran, Allah made Muhammad and the Muslims and Sahaba just go through so many different situations, and they got that text notification for every different situation. So you, Armin or Harris, could go through your life and imagine what it would if you were getting a text notification from Allah. We have an example from that. Like you could see, like what did they at this situation? What was the revelation? What was the hadith? What did Muhammad do? So Islam is such a complete religion that we made Muhammad go through every scenario possible, so you don't have to get a text from God, because Muhammad, Muhammad has a saying or a hadith, there's a hadith or the Quranic verse about every single situation that you could possibly imagine. That's what they would probably say. It's the most complete religion of all. That's what they say.
And Allah knew this problem. This is why in Quran chapter 5 verse 19 he said, I am sending you another prophet, so you don't complain, where is our prophet? Well, I'm still complaining. Where's our prophet, Allah?
Well, Harris, the response to that would be, you don't need a prophet, because the last prophet was so complete in his message that's why you don't need another prophet anymore.
Well, we need another prophet too, because there is so much confusion in understanding Allah's verses, like how much is too much, wife beating, for example.
Thank you very much for that 5-minute rebuttal.
There are certain hadiths about not hitting them excessively, so I don't know if it defines what excessive means.
We'll kick it over to Daniel for his 5-minute rebuttal as well.
Again, I'm not defending Islam. I'm just telling you what the rebuttals would be. Okay, I'm just telling you what I think. Some of, again, I'm not. Again, some Muslim in the comment section were like, "No, Armin, that would not be the rebuttal. Stop pretending like this would be the rebuttal." Okay, this is what I think some of the rebuttals would be. I'm not saying this is what every single Muslim's response is going to be. Okay. And I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, if I was playing devil's advocate, this is what I would say.
Yeah. So
okay, let me see. Isn't this explanation make Allah unable to communicate correctly? Isn't this? I don't understand your question. I mean, I agree with that. Isn't this explanation make Allah unable to communicate correctly? The explanation that I give, I'm saying a Muslim would say that the communication was perfect because we made Muhammad go through so many different situations, so you could see what the revelation would be at that time, or we could see what Muhammad as a role model, what example he would set for you to follow in so many different situations. Like, it's such a complete. No other religion has so many guides for so many different situations compared to Islam. So they're saying this is not they would say this is not a failure in communication. This is the best form of communication you could give. Like which leader of whatever madhab or whatever ideology do we have this much detail about their lives, about the decisions that they made, about the things that they're saying? Again, I'm not going to right now tell you what the counter to that would be, because that would not be the point of this debate. You saying means Allah can't give verses without context? No, we're saying he did give it with the context. The context is the situation, that the stories and the situation that Muslims were dealing with at the time. That is the context. Allah can give it without context, but he chose to give it with context because it would be more perfect with context. So yeah, Allah can give verses without context, and he can give it with or without context. So he chose to give it to you in pieces, so that within the context of what the situation was, so it makes more sense to you. Right. Anyways.
So Harris,
this is a better example for why it's a bad communication. So Binary saying, didn't Harris already mention that scholars cannot even agree on the message, therefore a bad way of communication? Yeah, the fact that there's so many different interpretations for Quran, there are actually more interpretations now, because the interpretations used to be more agreeable before compared to now. because the scholars are trying to play catch up with modern standards of morality. So now there's more disagreement. But if we are to accept some of these more moderate scholars, then and say that the traditional interpretations were wrong, the best thing you could say about Allah is that it's a God that cannot communicate with people because there's so many different interpretations, right? So either the traditional interpretations are correct and Allah is a monster, or the more modern interpretations could be correct, and therefore 1200 years worth of interpretations were all wrong, and that means Allah is just really shit at communicating, right? So this would be a better criticism, Binary. You're right.
It looks like you're gish galloping. You're just giving all of these random points. Like, can you just specify something that you want me to respond?
Daniel, if gish galloping means that he pointed out a whole bunch of things and he wants you to respond to, you did the same thing. Like, you mentioned many different points that you think human rights is destroying, and you want Harris to respond to all. Like, he's saying Harris is gish galloping because he mentioned a whole bunch of points, and I don't know which one to respond to. Can you specify which one you want me to respond to? Well, Daniel, you mentioned human rights is destroying everything under the sun. You had a whole list of things that you said human rights was violating. Actually, maybe he gave a list and then he focused on family. So maybe Daniel was expecting that to be the topic right now, and Harris responding to family. Oh, wait, hold on. Family.
Respond to. It seems like you're just rambling. You know, the topic of the debate is Sharia and human rights, and you're just bringing all these different theological issues. So try to focus. I gave you, Sharia. Don't interrupt me. You have specific questions that I gave you clearly that you can respond to on human rights, but you're just bringing up all of these random topics. So on the issue of family, look, I'm bringing objective arguments, unless you want to say that family is not valuable or marriage is not valuable, okay? But otherwise, family and marriage and love, these are valuable things. Objectively, all humans agree. Is living in a strong, stable...
Marriage is not, I don't agree. Objectively, all humans agree that marriage is valuable. No, marriage is a social construct in response to a desire that is valuable for us to satisfy. Marriage is a structure that we came up as answer, a solution to a desire that needs to be satisfied. Marriage is not the only solution. In fact, going forward, we might have better solutions.
Family with mother, father, grandparents, uncles, and aunts, a human right. The vast majority of human beings throughout history and today have lived in these extended families, and countless studies show the psychological and sociological benefits of living in strong...
I'm so glad to know that I'm not the only person that has a tongue twist when I say sociological. Hey, I didn't have...
stable kinship groups. Other studies show that not having family or living in broken families is associated with higher crime, higher depression, higher drug use, higher suicide rate, higher mental...
Okay, so he says not having a family or living in broken family. So having a family is not this like, silver bullet solution, because you could be having a broken family. It's like, again, it's about having meaningful, long-term, safe, deep, valuable relationships. Okay, that could come up in the form of a traditional family, whether that's an extended family or nuclear family, or it could be in more modern concepts of family, or it could be not in a family. But again, I do agree that the concept of a family is definitely worth defending and it was worth preserving. It just doesn't have to be in the same structure as before.
Health problems and so forth. Again, it's easy to understand.
And again, it's not just about defending this, the structure of a family. It's also about, once you have a family, to come up with ways of keeping it a healthy family.
How emphasis on individual liberty and equality above all else is antithetical to...
See, I think you're missing the forest for the trees. It's like missing, like you're so focused on the structure and the way that it looks and the aesthetics, that you're missing that the point is just finding people that you love and just giving them a lot of love, and people who give you love in return. Okay, like you're so obsessed with how would legally and structurally that looks, that you're missing what we're trying to do here, what is giving you all those benefits, what is giving you all those, reducing all that anxiety, what is giving your life feeling, making you feel important, making you feel significant, is the fact that you have somebody that loves you and that you are giving that love back in return. That is that's the element. And however you manage to get that. So if you compare people that have families and people who are alone, is the thing that is setting them apart, the thing that is making the alone people feel miserable, it's just because they're not receiving love and they don't have an opportunity to give love. If they can find another way to do that and receive that, they will get all the benefits. Okay. And if you're noticing that vessel that you created for an environment, for a safe place for people to receive and give love and get love, if you're saying that structure might not be working in modern societies, then find other ways to fulfill that. This is the problem with traditionalism. They have this nostalgia for the way things were, and they're not going to be able to sustain to maintain that, and their obsession with keeping the aesthetics and keeping the structure exactly the same as it was before. They're not going to be able to find an actual solution to the problem that we're having. I understand. Where's the family meme? I have it all the time. I keep bringing it all the time. What are you guys talking about?
Objective family value. Family often requires you to sacrifice your own personal desires for the benefit of kith and kin. Taking care of children or taking care of the elderly are significant burdens. If you constantly tell people that maximum freedom is the most important thing above all else, it's no surprise that people will choose.
Well, good thing we're not saying that. Maximum freedom is the most important thing above all else. Again, I showed you guys in the last stream that supporting human rights doesn't mean that maximum freedom is the most important thing above all else. There are limitations. We are on the side of laws. We are on the side of laws that limits your freedom. Just because we want more freedom that Islam allows, just because we want more freedom than authoritarian regimes allow, we are on the side of more freedom than than dictators want for you. That doesn't mean we don't want any limitations. We don't put maximum no, we put maximum happiness. We put minimum misery and maximum happiness above all things. A higher degree of freedom does get you more happiness, but not maximum freedom, not zero limitations. We are on the side of some limitations. We are actually on the side of law. We do believe in laws. We do believe in governments. God damn it.
Self-interest over family again and again. And eventually the institution of family will die off, which presumably you think is a bad thing, Harris. You might have even heard this.
It won't die off. It would improve. It will have better structures for family.
Anecdotally from friends who say bluntly, I have my own dreams and ambitions. I can't waste time on children or my parents. This is the anti-family sentiment that has spread like cancer in the modern world, and it's because of prioritizing individual liberty. And all the stats, again, prove it. Just look at average household size, for example, according to Pew, North America and Europe have the smallest average household sizes, whereas the Muslim world has double the household sizes of the...
Yeah, these are also true, okay? But again, is this just a function of them being Muslim, or is it a function of them being poorer? Right? Because other poor countries who are not Muslim also have larger family sizes. So if poor countries that are not Muslim also have larger family size compared to, I don't know, North America, maybe it's not because of Islam that they have a larger family size.
Of the West. Pew Research also shows that living alone is more common in wealthier countries, especially North America and Western Europe.
Yeah, living alone is more common in wealthier countries. Even if an Islamic country becomes more wealthy, it's more likely for people to be living more alone. The solution to that is not more Islam. This is a problem. I'm not denying that this is a problem. Okay, don't dismiss these as not a problem. Okay, just recognize that Daniel is failing to show. Again, the question again is, what does this got to do with human rights? people keep telling Harris that is off, like, oh, Harris is off topic, but Daniel stayed on topic. How is this on topic? He keeps telling us that, oh, you're alone. Oh, people are not getting laid. What has this got to do with human rights? Like, okay, Harris, like, I criticize Harris for sometimes going off topic, even though it is somewhat on topic. This whole idea of Daniel being on topic and Harris being off topic is completely ridiculous. Because people are like, oh, Harris, what does this got to do with Sharia? Technically, what Harris is saying is somewhat related to Sharia. But what Daniel is saying, like, the topic is human rights or Sharia. What Daniel is saying has nothing to do with human rights or Sharia. Daniel is more off topic than Harris is. Like, he keeps saying, like, oh, here are problems. Like, okay, yeah, these are problems. We agree. This is a crisis. People are alone. That's not good. People are not having sex. That's not good. And your point, Daniel, what does this got to? Oh,
Europe, fertility rates are plummeting throughout the modern world. UN report shows that in Europe, the fertility rate is below replacement, only 1.6 child per woman. The same thing in North America.
Okay, I agree with Daniel that people not having sex is a major problem. People living alone is a major problem. These are crises that need to be dealt with. Fertility rate, that is not okay, guys. I'm going to admit something to you. I like the fact that a country that it gets more well developed as countries become more economically rich. I like the fact that the fertility rate drops. Okay, for different reasons. Okay, I know this is a problem in some of these countries, but this is a good problem to have. All right, and also, by the way, three things about fertility rates. First of all, Islamic countries who become richer, also their fertility drops as well compared to Islamic countries that are less developed. Okay, and again, countries that are not Islamic, that are less developed, have higher fertility rates than other countries. So again, this is not an Islamic thing. This is how wealthy your country is. All right. So there's that. Second of all, this is a good thing. All right. If you look at the fertility rate in less developed countries, if that continued forever, we would have a major population problem on the planet. We know a lot of people are thinking like, oh my God, the world is not going to be able to sustain this population growth. It will be able to sustain it. Like, the fears about population growth are not warranted, because we know these poor countries, once they become richer, their fertility rates will drop. So we're not going to have to deal with a crisis that a lot of people think we will have to. Like, it will eventually, they will stop growing. The rate that they're growing by right now is not going to be. It's not linear. Okay. It just is going to flatten out at some point, right? So that's a good thing, because the planet will not be able to sustain that much growth rate if all these poor countries continue, reproducing the way they do, okay? However, so that's a good news for the planet. However, locally, that's not good. Locally, the richer countries, okay, need a bigger population, because they have pensions and they need a workforce that is paying taxes. They have a lot of social safety nets and government programs, and if people are not working and being taxed and paying into that, a lot of those social programs and social safety nets and everything is going to be threatened. So a lot of these more developed countries, they're like, damn, we need more, then we need higher fertility rates. And in the poorer countries, a lot of them are like, damn, we need less fertility rates. The poorer countries that have higher fertility rates, a lot of them have overpopulation, okay? But again, if your country is suffering from low fertility rates because you are more developed, then this is a good problem to have. Again, it's like a problem like, oh my God, I have a home, so now I have a leak because I have a roof over my head. Okay, so it's a good problem to have, is because if you're having a fertility rate problem, is because you have solved a lot of other problems. You're not dealing with starvation and poverty and low access to healthcare and all of that. You are dealing with a problem that is a problem of a country that has solved a lot of other things. So it's an indication that your people are better off than now you have to deal with low fertility rates. Okay, so there's that. Another point is that the actual issue here is xenophobia and racism and anti-immigration attitudes. Okay, because this is such a perfect match. Okay, this is, if people were not so scared of immigrants, okay, if you want to address too much of a high fertility rate in poor countries and too low of a fertility rate in more advanced countries, you know what you can do? You can move people, right? You could have more immigration. Guys, I'm actually very pro-immigration, okay? I think it helps both countries, both the country that the immigration is coming from and the country that it's going to. And it's such a beautiful transfer of wealth and transfer of resources and transfer of expertise from richer countries to poorer countries. Imagine countries that have people are more richer and have making more income, so they're having lower fertility rates, and the country is like, damn, we need more people. Instead of telling people like, have more babies, please have more babies, other countries are making more babies. Just bring them to your country. It's such a win-win for everyone. It's a win-win-win. It's a win for the countries that is like bringing in more workforce and just accepting like, okay, we have low fertility rate. Let's bring people from other places and fill in the workforce. It's amazing. Just do that. It's a great thing for countries that they're poorer and now they're going to a country that they have more opportunity to make income in these new countries. It's some of them will come back and bring the ones that don't come back will make money and send money to their families and helping the home countries economically develop, and some of them will go back and take their skill set back to their country. It's a win for the planet, because instead of forcing low fertility rate countries to keep pumping more babies, you're getting the countries that already have making more babies to just transfer from one country to another. It's such a perfect solution. The only thing that is standing in the way of this is people's xenophobias and people's like anti-immigration attitudes, people's racism. Okay, this is what's like. This is such an obvious. Every study on this has shown that more migration is more helpful to most countries. Like these people, like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Migrants are like destroying the fabric of society. That is unfounded. Like studies show that those fears are unfounded. Like even Germany, people thought like the whole Germany is, societal fabric and everything. The sky is going to fall. Everything is going to. German values are under challenge because of all the immigrants that they brought from Syria. Like they brought more immigrants from Syria than most European countries. And people are like, okay, this is the end of Germany. Islam is going to be taken over by Sharia. That didn't happen. Okay, the crime rates on average by migrants is the same as the people who live there. All right, and now Germany realizes that they didn't bring enough migrants. They're like, the solution to Germany is to bring more migrants, not less. They need more immigration, not less immigration. Okay, so this is such a beautiful solution to low fertility rates. Just bring more immigrants. But yeah, people are xenophobic, people are racist, people are anti-immigrant and all that. Yeah, and diverse. Yes, music guy, I didn't think about that. Diversified genetics.
Below replacement levels, but Muslim world, it's double or triple those fertility rates. This another metric.
This is such a weird flex. Like we make more babies. Okay, and why is it that right-leaning people, both Islamic and like white nationalists and every like right-wing Christians, why are they so obsessed with like fertility rates? Like, what is this flex? We make more babies? Like, why is that? Why is it okay? I guess, sure. And
that represents the death.
By the way, we're coming for your babies. We're making them non-Muslim. So don't think like, oh, we're making more babies, so the ummah is gonna grow. Yeah, good luck with that. As long as we can't reach them.
The family is the rise of single-parent households. According to Pew, in the US, about 1 in 4 children are in single-parent households. In the UK, 1 in 5. And these numbers have dramatically increased over the past 50 years. What this means is that even the very few children that are being born.
The solution to this is so easy. And okay, you're making less than replacement rate, just bring in immigrants.
born in the developed world live with a single parent, usually the mom, and she of course has to work to make ends meet. So this is not even the nuclear family. Forget about extended family. Even the nuclear family has been destroyed in the modern West.
Okay, so you're addressing that the extended family was one day destroyed, and now we have the nuclear family, and you guys are celebrating the nuclear family as if this traditional thing. Okay, so if we went through that transition once, why can't we go through that transition again from the nuclear family to the chosen family? So we are capable of going through these structural transitions. So what's the problem then?
What this means is that realistically, a high percent of children in the West don't have any family to speak of. No father, no siblings, no grandparents, no cousins surrounding them. Now, I can list for you a bunch of studies that demonstrate that children raised in these single-parent households are at increased risk of dropping out of school, increased risk of being incarcerated, doing drugs. Other studies show children from single-family households have double the risk.
Yes. Okay, who's denying that? What, again, I ask you, what does this got to do with human rights? Yes, single family households, children are going to have more issues. We know that. This is a problem. We need to fix this. We need to address this. What the hell does this have to do anything with human rights? What? Again, guys, some of you are hypocrites in the live chat because I see a lot of people on our side, keep saying Harris was off topic. Again, I have criticism for the things that Harris was highlighting. Like it was more possible for him to get on topic, okay? But everything he said was much closer to Sharia and more relevant to Sharia than anything Daniel is saying right now.
Of mental health problems.
What Daniel is saying to human rights.
More likely to be abused, more likely to commit suicide, and on and on. And this makes sense from a biological and psychological standpoint. For tens of thousands of years, humans have lived in large families with their own flesh and blood. When you strip that all away, like in the modern human rights West, what's that going to do to people psychologically?
Well, Daniel, you're a defender of the nuclear family. Again, look at what he's saying. For thousands of years, people lived in extended family, right? But the nuclear family is a modern concept. But these people defend the nuclear family. And he's like, but if you strip away the family, what people are going to be suffering? Well, you defenders of the nuclear family, you're defending something that came in replacement of something that was there for thousands of years. So if you're against this whole the new modern concepts of family, then you should also be against the nuclear family because that came in replacement. That the extended family was stripped away from everybody, and the nuclear family was replaced. How is it that killing one tradition is okay, but killing it a second time is not okay?
What is it going to do to them sociologically? Again, we see Muslims at the...
And again, nobody is, by the way, doing this. This is being done to us because... Like when I say killing family, it's not like we're doing it on purpose. Like we're not like people. There's nobody deciding that, oh, let's go and remove the extended family and put nuclear family there. Like this is not a policy. This is just an organic reaction to the new environment. Like this is not like people are complaining about this as if we could undo this, as if we could like force it to be otherwise. As your environment changes, this is the organic reaction to it. You can't even if you don't like it, what are we going to do? We can't do it. It's just going to happen.
Opposite end of the spectrum with all of these stats. And this is because of the rules in Islamic law, rules that specify.
Again, the rules in Islamic law, which is not stopping these changes. Again, look at more developed Islamic countries compared to less developed countries. They're going through the same trends. So you think you can stop these trends with Islam? You can't. You can't stop these trends with Islam because they're going through the same changes. As Islamic countries become richer and become more developed, the same changes are going to happen to them.
Parental rights, known as birr al-walidain, being good to parents, emphasis by the Prophet, peace be upon him, on fertility and having big families, emphasis on kinship rights and duties known as silat al-rahim, emphasis on getting married young, emphasis on taking care of elderly family members, not just dumping them in a nursing home, as is increasingly common throughout the West, and also the patriarchal families.
Look, okay, for example, let me show you something, right? So if you Google, again, this is an anecdotal example. It's not proof. I just came up with 2 Islamic countries just to see what I get. Okay, I'm not claiming this is proof, but I'm just using this as something that might be true. You could go do more research, right? So I went and looked at fertility rate in Somalia, right? Fertility rate in Somalia, you get almost 6 births per woman, right? And then I look at fertility rate per Malaysia, which is another Islamic country, but a lot more developed. You get under 2 births per woman, right? So again, this is as your country grows. Again, I'm not saying this is proof, because here, let me give you, instead of anecdotal, let's look at, well, I don't know if this is and this is not the same thing. It's saying living alone is more common in wealthier countries. So you can see that wealth is a better indicator. And again, you are going to find a correlation between Islamic countries and these things as well, but it is because Islamic countries on average are just less developed. Again, hashtag not all, but yeah. Let me see. Susanna is saying, but Daniel knew exactly what he meant. It's one of the most hurtful, practically abusive things I could ever possibly. Oh, I think you're responding to someone else, Susan, in the live chat.
Structure that is also very important. So these are some of the rules that the liberal human rights regime considers contrary to personal freedom and human rights, but these are the exact same rules that preserve the important human institution of the family. Don't you think families are objectively good, Harris? Then explain why human rights are destroying them. Explain that.
We are going to kick it over to the 5-minute response from Harris, and want to remind you.
Listen to what he said.
Our guests are linked in the.
Then explain the family. Don't you think families are objectively good, Harris? Then explain.
Families are objectively good. Objectively, I mean, that goes back into what is okay. Yeah, families are good. Okay.
Why human rights are destroying them?
Human rights are destroying them. Have I missed it? Has he ever, like, he keeps saying that human rights are destroying families. Have I missed the part where Daniel explains how human rights are responsible for destruction of a family? I think he just assumes that, I mean, his audience are like, okay, more developed countries are also countries that seem to be talking more about accepting human rights, and, you know, advocacy for human rights exists more in more developed countries. And therefore, human rights and also more developed countries seem to have lower fertility rates, or more people are living alone. And that's why human rights is anti-family? Is that what he thinks? Is that, again, guys, it's a very simple concept. Correlation is not causation. This is if you can't grasp that, if you can't understand how correlation is not causation, you're going to make a lot of really bad, simple conclusions. Because if it's not that, I don't understand how he managed to tie up human rights advocacy for the destruction of family. Did he just explain it and I missed it? Like, have you guys noticed any arguments in favor of why these two are connected? Because I'm too dumb to realize that. Like, somebody help me out here.
Explain that.
We are going to kick it over to the 5-minute response from Harris, and want to remind you our guests are linked in the description, folks. Go ahead, Harris.
Right. So you've obviously got a script that you're stuck to, and this is why we have to talk when the actual discussion starts. But so far, you haven't responded to any of my responses because you haven't spoken anything. You haven't said anything about Sharia. Don't interrupt. You haven't said anything about Sharia. I've spoken about your claim is Sharia is objective, and I've
see, Harris is making a point. Like, you haven't mentioned anything about Sharia.
Laid the argument against how.
And Daniel is like saying you didn't respond to any of my points. Well, Daniel didn't respond to any of Harris's point.
It is not objective.
Guys, again, I keep criticizing Harris on not being on point, but Harris is way more on point than Daniel is here.
And you haven't said anything yet. So let's just keep digging further into Sharia. And the problems that you're pointing out, some are valid, some are not valid. But either way, you make a mistake claiming that Sharia is somehow the solution. And this is what I'm exposing right now. Sharia is not a solution. Yeah. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. I'm talking about slavery, which you are a massive proponent of.
There we go. We got, guys, we were waiting for it. And we finally got here. The main examples. We're now going to go towards like, so guys like, oh, Harris was off topic. Okay, he was a little bit off topic at the beginning, but then he got there and he started talking about the things that are problematic in Sharia, something that Daniel never does when it comes to problems with human rights.
As I said earlier, not slavery. All Muslims have turned off their compassion switch, and they go out of their ways to make excuses.
Okay, I don't like the suggestion that Daniel has no compassion. I don't like that suggestion.
Such as how Islam promoted compassion, that it set in motion the world where slavery will eventually be abolished. Yes, it's a completely fabricated claim. I agree with you on that. But at least I can understand that they're trying to keep their humanity intact. In fact, this is the same claim modern-day Judeo-Christian apologists make as well. But you, Haqiqatjou, don't take that approach, because once you have lost all compassion and humanity, it's easier to become a literalist, because Quran literally advocates cruel practices like slavery. I wouldn't go into the mainstream slavery, the idea of treating human beings as commodity. That's just okay for you, yeah? I'm particularly troubled by sex slavery. Islam and Sharia literally allow you to go to a neighboring village, kill their men, and take their women as sex slaves who would clean your house a day. And
guys, this gets starting to get juicy, and it's starting to get good, because Harris is saying these things and Daniel is not going to deny these, right? Daniel is going to, this is the perfect part, because Harris is saying like Islam allows you to go and capture people as slaves and have sex with them. And the response of Daniel is not like, no, it doesn't let you that. The response of Daniel is like, let me tell you why that's okay, right? And this is what Harris did in this debate, and that was the most valuable thing that Harris made Daniel do in front of this big audience. Okay, so as much of a criticism, as much as we want to nitpick and say what Harris did wrong, at the end of the day, he did get a large audience of people watch Daniel explain why it's okay to capture people as slaves and have sex with them. Okay, that was what he needed to do. And a lot of people are like, oh, Harris did this, Harris did that. The main thing he needed to do was that, and he did that.
Do other things at night. Does this not send shivers down your spine? Is this a solution that you were just offering about what human rights, what the core family is destroyed or something, and this is the alternative that you're offering? Maybe it does to James and every other sane person listening to this, but look how cool you are, Haqiqatjou, with the possibility. You might be getting turned on by this practice. Quran allows this in multiple places, such as...
Okay, guys, I need to defend... people who have master slave kinks. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Like if you have that kink, don't let Harris shame you here, okay? If you get turned on by that, that's completely fine. Just make sure it's just role playing and not real.
Chapter 4, verse 24, 25, chapter 23, verse 6, 24, 31, and many more. How could this not be wicked and cruel? Ordinary Muslims are troubled by this, and I inquired further. If I can't make you feel for other humans that you intend to take as sex slaves, let's reverse the roles. Let's imagine I and my soldiers raid your village, kill you and your male members, and then take your daughters, wives, even mothers as sex slaves. Your women would not just have to deal with the fact that their husbands and sons and fathers have been murdered, but also the same night, they have to deal with having sex with the killers of their fathers and sons.
I also kind of like this part, but well, I mean, not like it. Okay. I also like the fact that Harris is pointing this out, because the way he is, because he's making it. I mean, I wouldn't have done this because that's that's not my style. But I think I can see what he's doing. He's, instead of just saying Islam teaches you this, he's saying imagine this, imagine that. And he's kind of making it more, you could relate to how devastating allowing such practices it is when you actually start imagining this happening to your loved ones, and if you were the victims. So I think this is a good strategy. Like, because we could say like, oh yeah, Islam allows sex slavery, and people are like, oh yeah, that's not cool. But then a lot of people don't grasp the harm and the number of people that suffered at the because of, you know, values like this, right? So just holding your hand and just walking you through what it feels like to be one of the victims of Islam because of these teachings, I think that's kind of a clever strategy to just like, just the extra, like, to show like this is what Islam makes possible.
And husbands and brothers. Would you be okay with that, Haqiqatjou? Now, can you answer that one? Maybe you can't feel that for other women who are not related to you, but surely, even as a sadist like yourself, could feel that for your female family members. If not, then I can only hope that other men who supposedly follow you don't think like you. Some Muslims...
Guys, again, you don't have to be... If you are a Muslim and you actually believe in Islam the way Daniel does, you don't have to be a sadist to promote these things. You might genuinely think that these are good for humanity. You might genuinely think this is the best thing for humanity. You might be advocating these things because, again, I'm not saying that's okay, right? But that actually that's what makes Islam more dangerous to me. Okay, that's why it makes me more concerned about dogmatic religious fundamentalism like this. The reason why these ideals are dangerous is not because just sadists will be convinced of values like this. It's because it helps you, it manages to convince people that actually wish well for others to actually believe that these things are okay, right? The danger, the tragedy of religion is that good people get convinced of evil things, not just evil people. Good people that actually think that they're serving humanity, get convinced in committing the worst crimes because they have been convinced that this is the best thing for everybody. This is not a defense of Islam. This is actually makes it scarier.
Say, well, you don't have to rape them, as though any woman would like to sleep with the very people who have murdered their fathers, brothers, sons, and husbands. This is not some far-fetched case. This is exactly what happened with Rehana bint Zayd, whose husband was killed by Muhammad's men after the massacre of Banu Qurayza. She refused to marry Muhammad out of respect for her dead husband, but eventually married Muhammad after she got sick of being the slave girl of Muhammad. Moreover, the infamous story of Safiya, when her father...
See, one thing I have an issue with this is that people who are non-Muslim, they might listen to this and they might be like, well, this ex-Muslim is saying that. Is that actually true, or is he making these stuff about Islam? So again, every time you're quoting stories like these about Muhammad, you need to mention that this is accepted in all these are sources of hadith that has been accepted in all 4 Islamic schools of thought.
Father, brother, and husband were killed. Safiya was taken as a slave girl, and Muhammad slept with her on the very first night. This was so outrageous that even one of the servants of Muhammad stood guard at the tent. When asked by Muhammad, "Hey, what are you doing here, boy?" "Oh, messenger of God, this young woman had just been married, and you killed her father, husband, and brother. So I did not trust her not to harm you." The Prophet laughed and said, "Good." If we film this, imagined it in flesh, every sane, Muslim or not, every sane person would be outraged by this behavior. This will be how an ultimate villain behaves. Yet, this is the man all you guys practically worship.
Guys, and like some people are, I think you're right. This is not the stories that he's referring to, not all of them are Bukhari or Sahih Muslim. Some of them are just from Al-Tabari. And Al-Tabari is not considered completely authentic. Is like questioned. The stories in there are questioned. Like this specific story that he just cited, correct me if I'm wrong, this specific story is not in any Sahih hadith, is there? Did he give a source for the story?
This behavior, not trust her not to harm you. You killed her.
No, like I think he didn't even give a source for this one. He just gave the story. Like, what was the source of the story?
And said, "Good." If we film this, imagined it in flesh, every sane, Muslim or not, every sane person would be outraged by this behavior. This will be how an ultimate villain behaves. Yet, this is the man all you guys practically worship. There's so many such stories.
Yeah, practically worship. Again, he's kind of corrected by that, but I wouldn't say that because not worshiping Muhammad is such a big deal in Islam that even merely suggesting that will be seen as you not understanding Islam. I know what Harris is saying because he said practically worship, but again, I wouldn't. Not worshiping any individual is such a major highlight of Islam that I wouldn't even suggest. I wouldn't even say you practically worship Muhammad because to anybody who's like on the Muslim side, it might come across like you know how big of a taboo worshiping people is in Islam. So if you even say that, to me, it suggests that maybe you don't understand Islam.
Let's look at this one. Once Abu Sa'd says, after the battle of Banu al-Mustalik, we came across some captive women. We asked the Prophet if we should drop our load, by load I mean semen, in or we
Wait, what was his source for this one? Hold on.
Pull out. The Prophet Banu al-Mustalik. We came across some. Yet, this is the man all you guys practically worship. There's so many such stories. Let's look at this one. Once Abu Sa'd says, after the battle of Banu al-Mustalik, we came across some captive.
He's not giving the source. Is this like a hadith? Is this Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim? Is this just like a Sirah? What is this?
Women. We asked the Prophet if we should drop our load. By load,
guys, what is the source of this one? You need to give the source.
I mean semen.
So why did he not give the source, guys? Anybody?
In or we pull out. The Prophet says.
I think this is authentic. This is Sahih Hadith. I think I've seen this. I think I remember seeing this in Sahih Bukhari. So it's such a shame that you didn't mention that this is Sahih Bukhari.
Do what you want. Allah controls the pregnancy. Bukhari chapter 4,
yep.
4138. These captive women.
So somebody's saying this is Hadith but not Sahih. No, I think this is Sahih. I think I've seen this in Bukhari. I might be remembering. Somebody saying I remember reading this in Hadith. Yeah, but is it Sahih Hadith?
Were living, breathing human beings. Imagine my soldiers come to me and ask me, oh, General Sultan, whether we should pull out or drop the load in the sisters of so-and-so we have just killed. And you're worried about the falling fertility rate?
Oh, he did?
There's also...
Somebody's saying he just mentioned this... missed it, sorry.
Imagine my soldiers come to me. Were living, breathing human beings. Imagine my soldiers come to me and ask me, oh, General Sultan, whether we should pull out or drop the load in the sisters of so-and-so we have just killed. And you're worried about the falling fertility rate? This also reminds me when Stalin was told about...
Where's the source? I don't see the source. But I like the part that he said that, and you're worried about dropping fertility rates? Like, dude, your religion teaches you that that when you're having sex slaves, the question is not whether we get to rape them. The question is whether we get to come inside them or do we have to pull out. That was what Muhammad had to answer with regards to how to have sex, like what to do when you're having sex with your sex slave, raping them, basically. That was the question. And he's like, okay, yeah, fertility rates is a problem, but like you are in no position to prescribe Islam as a solution to anything, given that this is what you're teaching. So I think that was very well put. Okay, so somebody said, okay, so you're saying the source was, guys, if you mentioned the source, I missed it. I'm sorry. It was Sahih Bukhari. See, I was correct. It was Sahih. It was Bukhari. So this is a hadith. This is an authentic hadith in Sunni Islam, and it does teach you that Muhammad was basically when people capture sex slaves in battle, when they asked Muhammad, should we come inside them or pull out? Muhammad was not like, maybe don't rape them. That was not what Muhammad said. Muhammad said, like, what was the answer? Did Muhammad say pull out or come inside? I don't know. I think he said you're allowed to pull out if you want to, because I think they would. Hold on, I don't remember what his answer was. But the question, but the issue at hand was like, which was not that you shouldn't rape them. Oh, somebody's saying it's Sahih Bukhari 2542. Do I need to verify this, or are you guys giving me like bullshit? Because you guys are saying something, and if it's wrong, then I don't know. Hold on. Bukhari 2542. Let's see if this is. Oh yeah, you You guys are correct. This is Sahih Bukhari. Look at this. Sahih Bukhari 2542. Okay, I'm gonna embarrass myself because I can't this pull-out method. I have a hard time reading this. Coitus interruptus. Did I read it right? I'm just gonna call it the pull-out method. Okay. I saw Abu Said and asked them about the pull-out method. Abu Said said, we went with Allah's apostle in this war, blah, 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 and we captured some of the Arabs as captives, and the long separation from our wives was pressing. Look at this. He's saying, like, the long separation from our wives were pressing, and like, we were horny. We were horny, and we had sex, we had slaves, but we didn't want to get them pregnant. It was pressing us hard. Look at this. The long separation from our wives was pressing us hard. Guys, this is authentic. This is Islamic hadith. This is second only to the Quran. This is Sahih Bukhari. And we wanted to practice coitus interruptus. This is such a... I nailed it? Okay, so I'm saying it correctly. We wanted to practice coitus interruptus. Okay, so again, they knew that they could... The thing that was... The reason why they were hesitant in raping their sex slaves was not because they thought it was wrong. Or like, oh my God, can we do this or can we not do this? We're like so horny. Should we rape our sex slaves or not? Like that was like, is that moral or not moral? That was not the issue. The issue was like, is it moral for us to pull out because we don't want to get them pregnant? Because if they're pregnant, they're not going to be worth as much, I guess, right? So the morality of it was on the pulling out part, not on the raping part. So they asked Muhammad if it's okay, whether it was permissible, not the raping part, but the pulling out part. He said, it is better for you not to do so. Again, Muhammad is saying it is better not to do so. Not that it's better for you not to rape. He's saying it's better that you don't pull out when you rape them. That's what the Prophet of Islam is telling the Muslims, okay? Not that it's better if you don't rape them. He's telling you, again, I have to keep repeating this because it's so amazing that this is actually in authentic hadith and people are still Muslim, even though this is what their book said. Muhammad is not saying that it's better. It's not saying that it's better for you not to rape them. It's saying that it's better for you to keep your cum inside of them when you rape them. That's what Muhammad is saying. He's saying no soul that which Allah has destined to exist up to the day of resurrection, but will definitely come into existence. Like basically, it's like it's better if you don't pull out, because if there's supposed to be a baby out of your having sex, you shouldn't be the one that makes a decision. It should be up to Allah, basically, right? So he didn't command them not to pull out. He's like, it would be better if you don't pull out, but if you want to pull out, it's not going to be a sin. And I'm saying, see, Islam has an advice for everything. Yes, such a complete religion. No other religion tells you whether you can pull out when you rape your sex slaves. It is a complete religion. It's so complete. It has a solution for everything. Isn't it wonderful? Are you guys not impressed? Are you guys not impressed with Islam? Come on. Which other religion answers the question? Which other religion? Does Christianity tell you that you get to come inside your slave or you have to pull out? It doesn't. Obviously, Islam is superior. Obviously. Yeah, let's continue.
About the mass-scale rapes of the German women at the hands of the Red Army. Stalin.
Susanna is saying, "Let me take the Shahada right now."
Simply said, they've been through a lot. Let them enjoy. This is literally what Muhammad did. In another instance, a guy by the name of Salama says he captured the prettiest.
This is the good part of Harris, guys. The criticism is mostly over. These are the good parts of Harris's performance.
Girl in Arabia. When he took her back to Abu Bakr, he gave her to him as a gift. Sahih Muslim 1755. Slavery is horrible, but sex slavery is even worse. And this merciful prophet and his Sharia enabled it. There's so many other stories like this, but I can't pick them all in 5 minutes.
I don't know. It's there are other forms of slavery that is just as bad as sex slavery. Like when you get when you're a slave and you get to force into forced combat, right? So like I'm just trying to like make sure there are other forms of slavery that is even worse than sex slavery, like being killed in mines, like having to do mining and very horrible situations where people just constantly die under the most horrible situations, like the slavery in South America and the silver mines in South America. That's intense.
We'll kick it over to Daniel for his.
All right, so I'm gonna end this here. So we're gonna pick it up from here next time. We are at almost the 1 hour mark, because the reason why I want to pick it up from here is because Daniel is now going to defend slavery, and we're gonna witness that, and I'm going to counter that. Okay, I'm going to counter what Daniel has to say in defense of slavery. So we've already been on for 2 hours and a half. So let's pick it up here. Oh, guys, if you want to see when the next stream is going to be, I think either today or tomorrow, I'm going to schedule it. And you're going to see on the homepage of the Atheist Republic YouTube channel when the next debate review is going to be. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. But subscribing to the channel is not enough if you want to see when the next stream is coming. You have to hit the bell notification. And then when you hit the bell notification, you have to select all. Because our channel is like very deprioritized. Like for you to be able to even have a chance of getting any notification of when the next stream is either for you to actively come and look at the home screen and see what it is, and also to hit the bell notification. And then when you hit the bell notification, select all. And also, because we're so deprioritized, it helps so much if you like the video. It really, really, really helps. So please do us all a favor. Like, I'm here spending time going through this with you. You must be enjoying it, or else you wouldn't be here. So please, in return, just like the video. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps us. It helps us, okay? Let me see some other comments in the live chat. Cool. Guys, eventually we're going to get to the back and forth between Daniel and Harris, and that's going to be very interesting. And then once we're done with this one, we're going to go and review, probably we're going to go review Apostate Prophet and the debate that he's about to do. Yeah. Maybe, depending on how that goes. All right, guys, I'm gonna go get some snacks, eat some popcorn with some my own protein popcorn mix. Let me know if you guys want on my personal channel. If you guys want to talk about my workout routine and my diet and stuff, right? Susanna is saying I love this episode. Oh yeah, guys, follow Susanna on Instagram. Follow my personal YouTube account. Link in the description. Follow me on Facebook, link in the description, and subscribe to our newsletter for our beautiful blasphemous art. If you're interested in our sexy blasphemous art, we make it available to you for free if you're subscribed to our newsletter. So link in the description for that as well. All right, bye guys. May Iblis bless every single one of you. Bye.